Kill you. Evil man make you kill me. Evil man make me kill you. Well, I think I'm actually fight like a farmer. You know what I mean?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another show. Let's look at this. This is your host, Dr. K. And we start off with that as Machine Gun by Jimi Hendrix. Okay. What we're looking into and going into another what would be war, senseless war as I see it, but others don't on the political side. The song itself speaks on the atrocities and massacre of the Vietnam War, which was just a senseless side war that would lead into what we see today. So I'd say good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you, brothers and sisters. Good morning to you, Minister P.
Good morning, Dr. K. Can you hear me? I want to say good morning to all of my brothers and sisters, all of our viewers, all of our friends, all of our supporters. This is a great day, a great awakening. Let's get prepared.
Oh yeah. Let's get this rolling. Got started with that because it brings back so many fond memories, especially if you wasn't there or had to privilege of being born during that time. You of course know, and most people know of the history of the Vietnam War and what it entails. I would know in that aspect of more to understand what the Vietnam War in itself has to entail, because as you can see, in the side of me would be a flag that represents my father, who was a Vietnam vet who fought in the war for 3 years. He spent time in Vietnam and Vietcong. So serving this country, serving our country. And what most people would want to portray is that we are not patriotic. But as you can see, there's nothing, you could say there's nothing as referensive to why I wouldn't be patriotic, because I pride myself on my heritage and my lineage for those who have fought. Even to add, and not even to having a short military background myself, and in my uncle, my father's oldest brother, who fought in the Korean War. So in saying that, we get started with, we'll go right into what we should be really focusing on and creating and moving forward in society and what we were rebuilding our community. 1, speak politely. That is the code. 2, pay fairly for what you buy. 3, return everything you borrow. 4, pay for everything you damage. 5, do not hit or swear at people. 6, do not take liberties with women. 7, do not damage property or crops of the poor, oppressed masses. And 8, if you ever had to take captives, do not ill treat them. And we're witnessing a lot of ill treatment. Even if we go back of last year, you see our would be Haitian brothers and sisters who were trying to come over and given no aid. That in itself speaks for itself. Going into what you would see now. So we the title, of course, of our broadcast today is War Games, and many people have seen such movies. I don't know if you remember Minister P, a movie being out there called War Games. It came out in the 80s, early 80s.
Definitely.
Yeah, and if you look at the pretense of it, actually the director or the producer or creator foresee forecasting what was the start of what that movie entails. So these are things that we have to pay attention to, look into, and then how is it going to affect us as a community? These are things that we have to really pay close attention to and be mindful of. Because I just had someone ask me on yesterday, what and how will this affect us, and what is the whole purpose of it? And we can go in depth. Of course, power. And when you're looking at this thing, and if you start studying who's at the head of this and who's in the middle of it, it's usually no one that looks like you and I that is trying to solidify some point of power. And then you ask the question, because this is about questions and answers. Power to do what would be the question. Power to do what? To go to war for what?
Absolutely.
These are some of the questions that need to be asked. Why would you? And and when you talk against it, they try to quiet you and put as I told you before, Minister P, here we are again. We're talking about something that's a touchy topic, and what's something that the people may not want, but they send out mass media to trick or coerce people to buy into, just as they're coercing Ukraine to the West is coercing the Ukraine to go into what would perceive to be war, which could innately start World War III, and that could lead to a whole nother conglomerate of things.
Well, Dr. K, let me say this before we go any further. It will lead to a whole lot of things, but let me give these ethical codes for our brothers and sisters.
Oh yeah, definitely.
These are the ethical codes that will empower us as a community. The first one is have integrity. Number 2, observe unity at all times. Number 3, have objectivity, have a vision, know what's coming up, have a plan. Number 4, always observe confidentiality. Quit telling people's business to the people down the street. And number 4, always strive for growth. That's personal growth of a man, of a woman, of a husband or a wife, a brother or sister. Be the best that you can be. Always strive for personal growth. And that's our 5 ethical codes for us.
Yeah. That last one, not going down the street telling somebody else's business, more or less would ensue you to stay out of somebody else's business.
Come on now.
So here we are again in somebody else's business. Not saying that someone doesn't need help, but we have our own war going on. Excuse me, right here right here in what they would call, what they so-called the United States of America. There's a war in here that's happening that most people have made. Miss B, so much is going on, so much is happening, and so you're hearing a lot of things. Internet, that the internet has become the new mass media for the most part. But then, what is being said over this mass media is the question. What is being said, and what constructive results will it bring to people, more or less, whether you be that of what they call black and white or any other culture? Question is what it is going to produce as reference to going down and getting to someone else's business. And of course, in this mass media, we're talking mass media. What type of information are we putting out there to help and to guide the people as reference to what is going on? Again, the title, what we have is War Games. And this can be a touchy subject based on, because of course you have so many people, we have family members, past or future, present family members that may be either looking to go into military forces, armed forces, or has already served. And then, we're asking, what is the purpose of them actually going into it? And of course, they've already brought into the process to serve. So they would be forced to actually go into a war that is to be had. And we're saying they'll give you, what's the old title, well, you're serving and protecting your country. And if I had to look back on maltreatment of myself being in this country, I would want to look in the mirror and ask myself, why do I choose to serve? Is it for a beneficial reason? What is the benefits? If I'm only getting benefits, then I'm laying my life on the line just for a benefit and something that may not more or less be a constructive return in the future. So that it may be, it is a lot going on, and we have to be mindful and touch on things that are happening in our community and in front of us in our country. How do we tend to get to that point of being to me, it means to be this war is, it's like it's always a point of confusion. It's always a point of somebody moving forward to push you in a position to where you would be confused about and derailed. It's this thing, what we talked about on our show before, as I say, war games, meaning that in this war, there's many games to be played. So one of the things that we're looking into is, of course, that what we see at hand that's right in front of us, which is one of the biggest things that will, in some point, affect our economics. When you're talking about war, that will make gas prices go up. Of course, leads to food prices going up. Of course, leads to the old tax going up. So we have to pay attention to these things, and then it goes back to what our previous show was on. It's about who's courting us in politics, who's going to be our, we'll say, date for 2 or 4 years or 3 years or 8 years. Who's going to be dating us? Because to me, that's what it is. What type of date are we on, and what type of meal are they going to feed us? Minister P, I doubt that if someone was to ask you out on a date, it would be such as your wife or whoever they may be, or in the past, and they say, hey, Minister P, I want to take you to McDonald's on a date. Surely, not saying that would be a bad date, but that's a cheap date. So what type of date are we looking into and to be guided on, as we talked about last week, leading to some of the games that's being played in this war that's happening, whether it be political or it be a physical war, is what we're seeing in front of us. It's reference to Russia and Ukraine. And there's so many other elements going on that's involved in this process of war. One of the biggest things is, that's what I mentioned, derailment, is the reparations aspect. They're bringing in all these other groups. They're trying to force these other groups to come in, but then they're bringing in a lot of us who may not understand what is needed out of reparations, meaning to repair something that has not been completely fixed over time. So, Ms. P, what's your thoughts on this aspect of war? What do you think as far as these war games? What is your thoughts on the war games at hand?
Well, we have to take different views. There is the worldwide world view. There's the domestic view, and then there is our community view. When we look at the word war itself, that means conflict. That means aggression. That means domination. And, the Bible has told us man should not dominate other man. As a matter of fact, in the book of Acts, it talks about God has already given each people group their own boundaries. That's in the book of Acts. And man refused to listen to that, and they start dominating each other. And that's what this war is all about. Listen, it's about two factors. It's democracy, and then communism. Is just that simple. And dictatorship. See, communism leads to dictatorship. Democracy does not lead to that. Democracy leads to different voices giving their voice, and the people have a right to say their voice. Dictatorship is just that one man saying, here we go. And same thing how it is with Russia and Putin. Putin is calling the shots. He wants to go back to how the old Soviet Union was outlined with the landmass that it has. That's why he's in there fighting Ukraine, who is of a democracy country. He can't stand that. So he's fighting his hardest to take out that cancer called democracy and implement a dictatorship there where I control. It's my way or the highway, my way of death.
So to ask you a question, Ms. Speak, would you say overall, right here in what they call the United States, would you say this fully a democracy? Or is there a point of where they tell you you're a part of a democracy and then they're practicing something else? Because, I mean, when you look at economically, of course, we live in a society. This is a capitalist society that we live in. So is it they're saying to, hey, well, yeah, buy and spend and you can go make money, but when you in the process of trying to go make money, if it doesn't go right, you can't open your mouth on this subject. Just as we have been in the process of what we've been talking about before, the last 3 years that we've been in this, what they would call COVID-19, and they were putting gag orders, and I brought that up some time before, reference to saying this gag order is just not only inside the courtroom, this gag order comes outside the courtroom, and the question would be, who are they looking to put a gag order on? Just reference to speaking about certain things, what they would call now this, and I'll fully say it, vaccine. Because at this point, it's like the cat is out the bag. We have to be clear and precise on what is being said and what they're barring people on saying. So, are we in a democracy, or is this a shadow? Let's say a shadow democracy, and the front runner of it is communism, and the backdrop of it is showing that, hey, we live in a capitalist society, spend money. So in this war, of games that we're playing. I mean, which one is it? Which way are we going? You know, we were like a up and down. It's a roller coaster. We went high one day and then low the next, and we're spinning around and all over the place. Go ahead, Minister.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing is, this country itself has a lot of shortcomings. You know, there's not total equality. There's not total equity. We understand that, and it was founded on that premise. This nation was founded and built on slavery. However, our core form of government is democracy. Here's the analogy. Here is legal to protest. Democracy. In China and Russia, it is illegal to protest. Here it is. You cannot form a group of people and protest.
So right there, Miss Steve, stay right there for a second. You know, there's a law right now on us. That's why the gathering that we do. Now, a march is one thing. Of gathering a group, you can't, what they would call the black race. We cannot gather in a group. There's a law on that. So my question is, what is so different? Now, people do it anyway.
Yeah.
People do it anyway. I mean, but you just can't go outside and do it. You have to, what they call correlate, and you got to connect with people to actually get this done. You have to go and get the proper licensing or permits to even do this now. So you have to actually put down on paper why are you protesting, instead of saying, well, no, I don't see this. I just couldn't go outside and get 1 million people and start protesting. It has to be coordinated and actually put through the proper people. And of course, if it's put on paper through the local government, they, of course, to antagonize, they connect with law enforcement. Why I say this, because I've been in the process of that. I know the ins and outs of how they do these things. They get this on paper, and the person who is looking to antagonize the group is working for law enforcement anyway. So he'll throw a brick and say, well, let's go down this way. Everybody following this one guy who is acting so-called, quote unquote, the leader. And then that's how things there's unrest there.
And those followers were ill-advised. They were unorganized. They didn't have the right information because they followed the wrong leader. That's a show in itself. Stop following the wrong leader. That's why we are becoming empowered by your show and other shows like yours. We're not those followers anymore. We are leaders being led by a leader. And that's how I like to put it. We are leaders being led by a leader. And what I mean by that, Dr. K, is that we are becoming educated, man. This is not the same game that we once were involved in. We are now educated. This thing is pumping. Man, is working. And so you called out that there may be some legislation in getting a march or a protest started. But the thing is, you can do it. In the dictatorship, which is China and Russia, it's illegal. You can't get a piece of paper signed. It won't work. You'll be thrown in jail, you'll be gassed, or you'll be poisoned. So that is the method of operation over there. We've seen it over and over. Putin has any opposition. What happened to them, Dr. K? They came up missing, they came up in jail, poisoned, or dead.
Yeah, and I hate to, and we're gonna go into detail of that word, pinpoint this conspiracy theory word, because I really want to break that down. So I wanted to say this in reference to when we go into this on another show, this conspiracy theory term. When you talk about just what you just said, Mr. P, as far as somebody come up missing, poisoned, dead, or somebody robbed them, we know that in this country that happens when somebody speaks too loudly about things. And you have to, at some point you have to put a challenge in, and as reference to things being handed down to you and someone to tell you to, close your mouth or put a lid on it and tell you not to speak on something that is that is an importance to a group. That will be like now, we're on this platform. We're talking and we're educating. And then again, there's nothing that they can do about your brain, but they try so hard, within the foods, within the water, whatever it is put out there that we consume in our bodies, they tend to maneuver you in a different direction. So it puts on a point of it almost becomes, when somebody says something, that's what you say. Oh, that's, they'll say that term. Oh, that's a conspiracy. You're a conspiracy theorist. That nothing like that happens, because we don't see that every day, right? We're not in the midst of that. We just hear things of such possibly happening like that, but we have to pay close attention to. That's just be like I'm talking now on the subject of war games, and then next thing you know, I say, hey, I got the FBI knocked on my door, because of course they're surely listening, and they were saying, well, what were you talking about? Why are you mentioning war games? And what is your purpose of talking about that? And so it's things of that nature. And of course, no one will believe me unless I actually photographed it, filmed it. Of course, today we got this technology afforded to us to actually film these things that's happening. Even though some people in the past have recorded situations where they've had these federal processors approach them to coerce them into other things, or asking questions on it's as if I'm supposed to shut up and not talk about anything, just go with the status quo. You got a nice car, house, this, that, and the third. You're doing okay. Things are much better. You're not getting beat and water hosed like before. I said, well, no, that water hose can come in many forms. Don't have to be just I'm being physically water hosed. They can be doing things to me mentally to water hose me, which is what we're seeing today. Things we're not getting a physical beating, but we're getting a mental beating out here. We're getting a mental beating. We talked about in our previous show, about the temperature checking that they do when you come into a place now. Not that it's anybody's business, but I would like to know, what is your temperature on your mental state? That is what needs to be looked at, instead of you trying to figure out using this gauge here to tell the temperature. What is my temperature today? But what is my mental status? Let me express that to our listeners. My mental status is okay. I haven't gone crazy. I haven't lost my mind.
Okay, there it is.
I'm not going to speak out of turn.
Hey, Dr. K, that's it. Then we got that is established. Listen, but here's the thing with that. We can tell somebody's mental state. We don't even need a gauge for that, because, like for me, I've been trained with 33 years of working with the state. I can gauge someone's mental temperature, as you put it. So I don't even need that person to tell me. I can tell it right where it is. But Dr. K, when we're staying within certain social guidelines, but we can say anything that we want to. That's the good thing about living in a democracy, a country that is governed by democracy, as opposed to a country that's governed by dictatorship, where only how this man says it. See, he doesn't even counsel among anybody else. It's my way or the highway. And so we know that China, Russia, Korea, all have those dictatorships. And so that's what they hate. They hate the democracy that we have. They hate the freedom that we have. They hate people to come and speak the ability to speak their mind, the ability to have certain shows like this that empower. Look at this. It empowers people's minds. You can't have that over there in China. You can't have that.
That's true. And Minister, I'm not for breaking any law, which should be a part of the code. Not looking to break any laws, but if it comes down to putting out a word that's supposed to be put out and educating people proper educated on a situation, that's one law that I will break. I will become an outlaw in that aspect to break that whole aspect of things. So I definitely challenge our people not to, don't speak on that, because they, for the most part, we look at they say that we're not gagged. Talking about we'll say the diaspora of what they call the so-called Black community, right? Mm-hmm. We have the ability to speak, but then how far can we speak will be the proper question. How far are we willing to go without biting my tongue on, that may make someone uncomfortable. That may make somebody uneasy in their seat when it is happening in plain sight. But I can't speak on it and bring awareness to say, hey, well, that doesn't seem right. That's not the aspect of true justice of what you're doing. Just as we, at the end of our show last week, talking about the decision that was made on this former officer who couldn't tell the difference between a taser and a gun. And then based on how the judge was speaking of her, that in itself spoke volumes as reference to what type of, are we in a democracy? We can say that we can speak, and we do have this platform to speak about what was happened. But would they put me, here's the democracy, let him say what he wants, right, on this platform. Question would be, who's listening? He doesn't have that many listeners, is what they'll say. Nobody's paying attention to that. But see, they won't let me on these major media channels and start speaking like this. They'll cut, edit, and put words that I hadn't even said in my mouth. So, are we really living in a democracy? And why is it a game that's being played, a war of games that's being played, to be exact? Here we are looking at a physical war, and then looking at a mental war. There's a warfare on every aspect on how we move in society. That would be the 9th area of activity, which we in reference to what they say to the code, as our dear brother Nelly Fuller speak of. Technically, we shouldn't be discussing war because it leads to it goes against the code, because it leads to, like you say, it leads to a more of a restraint that would lead to someone being harmed, to put them in greater harm.
I look at it like this: truth is truth.
Right.
Truth has absolutely no barriers at all. It can't be restricted and can't be constricted. The truth is truth. The truth is the reality. And so we have the right over here in America to speak the truth and reality that other dictatorship countries don't have. And because of that, again, shows like yours and shows like others that speak the truth. Listen, we're not tempered. I'm sorry that you felt that the truth hurt you. No, we don't abide by that. The truth is always supposed to help you grow.
Right.
And so when you resist the truth, then let's put it like trees. So the truth is in the form of a water. Okay, so we're watering that tree. Okay, so that tree is going to grow. Why? Because it received that truth. But here's a tree that resists the water, the truth. Guess what's going to happen to it? It's going to die. Yeah. It's not going to have no leaves, no fruit, no nothing. It's going to die and be a form of a tree all by itself. And so we that follow the truth and abide by the truthful rules, like again, your show and other shows like this, we speak the truth here, and we're going to continue to speak the truth. Why? Because it edifies, empowers, and encourages our Black community and our supporters and friends for personal growth. Personal growth for what? For being the best man or woman that you can be, for being the best husband or wife that you can be, for being the best brother or sister, uncle, auntie that you can be, and a member of this community.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely have to overshadow any of the negatives that they may put and portray on. We're not looking for a pity party or for somebody to feel sorry for us. We just want the truth to be put at hand. No pity party. Nobody's looking for a pity party here. We never asked for a pity party.
Right.
So in saying that, in that case, we can go back to Dr. King or even Malcolm X, or so many others that have paved that way. They were not asking for a pity party. They were not speaking hatred. They were only trying to tell what was the truth that was in plain sight.
Yeah.
In plain sight. That's like if someone came up to me and smacked me, Minister B, and you saw it. You saw it. They said, well, and then they said, well, how did Minister B, how did you see that smack across Dr. K's face? He said, well, it was just this plain sight. Somebody came up to him and smacked him. They didn't give him a flower. I didn't see a flower. I didn't see them shake his hand. They just clearly came up to him and slapped his face. So when you use that analogy and that and try to equate to what the greater society is doing, some of our people make mistakes at times, and I'm not sure if it's the process of not being educated properly, whether or not things hadn't happened to you. So for example, I was listening to this one particular show, and a brother had made a statement on he was tired of a certain aspect of tired of being looked upon as all woe is me type of, and then he went on to say that he hadn't the things that he's seen happen to other people hasn't happened to him. So, and which is fine. I get that statement, and he's right in that aspect of saying that, hey, that did not happen to me. As reference to, I didn't get pushed over or pulled over or treated that way, and we understand that, but it has happened so many times. It's almost as if I feel it. I feel the pain of that because that could have been me.
Yeah.
That's the miseducation part. Yeah, that could have been me. Man, I'm gonna give you a quick example from the spirit, and you tell me your thoughts. This is when I was 15 and living in the city of Chicago. Me and my family member, a cousin of mine, was walking on a Saturday morning, going to what would be convenience store off the main street. So we were passing the alleyway, and there was a car speeding down the alley, and you forgive that noise, Mr. I'm sorry. There's being some work done on my phone. So, ladies and gentlemen, forgive me. I've been trying to ignore it, but let me just put it out there.
We can adjust.
I'm trying to adjust. I'm having some work done, and they are here early. Sorry, I just want to apologize to my listeners, but forgive me for that. But let's move on. So, any case, we were walking, and it just dawned on me, of course, being able to pay attention to my surroundings. This was a car zooming down this alley. And so I'm like, look, I just happened to see it. And I had to, cousin was talking, he was in the midst of talking to me. I said, hold on, cousin. I put my hand out and stopped him so we both wouldn't get hit. I stopped him. And he said, oh my goodness. He said, man, I didn't even see the car. I said, yeah, man, this guy crazy. So as soon as the car pulled up on us right there off the alleyway, right at our torso, at the chest level, two officers that doesn't look like neither one of me and my cousin jumped out. One jumped out, told my cousin to come around to the back. The other officer pulls me towards the window. He told me to step towards the passenger side of the window, and he begins to talk to me. He grabs my jacket. He starts going through it, and he tells me, in the midst of grabbing my jacket, he tells me, "Don't move." And the next thing I had looked towards my cousin on the back just to see what was happening. Then I looked back towards him. He had his revolver pointing in my chest. And he made a statement is, you know, if you make any sudden move, this has a hairline trigger on it.
Mhm.
So not that that has happened to everyone, but it's situations like that, that when it happened and somebody is informed of it, you don't, I'm not asking anyone to feel, possibly have felt the pain that I felt, which I didn't actually, to be honest, Ms. B, I didn't feel any pain, but that's a whole nother topic. I don't want to go into detail, but in any case, when he did it, you know, just the pain, someone else would have, most people would have even just been, I mean, feared or cried and been in this trauma. But if anything, I learned from that. That was a learning process. That was a teaching process and a learning process. One, I learned that these two officers shouldn't even be in uniform or be in, that they were detectives. They shouldn't even be on the force, period. And I go back, and that goes back into what I was saying, that if you're on the job and you making a statement that I'm fearing for my life, go find another profession. They're just plain and simple. Go find another profession, because they didn't knock down your door or beat down your mailbox with letters or and forcing you to come and join these law enforcement departments.
Absolutely.
That's something you decided to do. So that's a cop out. That is a cop out.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Right. No pun intended.
So
But
let me ask.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question. So you said these two cops didn't look like you and your cousin. What did they look like?
Oh, they were white officers.
They were white. Okay, so
they were white.
Hey, we got to call it for what it is. See, because this is happening. This is happening. Listen, I'm sure everybody saw this. This was a 15-year-old boy in the mall, and he was taken up for his friend, and this white boy who was in high school. Now this other boy was in elementary school, so maybe he was 14 or so, but he was in elementary school, and the white boy was uh, bullying his friend. Now the white boy was in high school, and so he stood up for his friend, and they got into a fight. When they got into that fight, two white police officers came, and they tackled the black boy and set the white boy gently on the couch and said, "Stay right there." Turned their back on him. They didn't know whether he had a weapon or a gun, and they came and handcuffed and put their knees in the back of the black boy and handcuffed him and took him off to some room and contained him there. And so, if you just look at what happened, immediately they attacked the black person, told the white person to sit there. That white person could have had a weapon. Time that black boy was down, he could have pulled out that weapon and done harm to the black person in handcuffs now, and then ran off. See, so we look at disparities like that. We look at the Aubrey, Ahmaud Aubrey case, where the three people, thank God, justice was brought to fruition through the legal system, where they were convicted of his murder, plus they were convicted of a hate crime. And why were they convicted? Because the silly men continue to put those hate words out there. What our lesson today, brothers and sisters, viewers and friends, watch the words that you put out into the atmosphere. Make sure they're words of healing and help. Make sure they're words of edification, empowerment, and encouragement to help each other. But here, these three defendants spew nothing but hate words, Dr. K, over and over. and guess what? Got caught up.
Yeah, caught up with them. So that you know, we talk about that all the time, and as far as pay attention to words. I'm not sure how many times we go over that every show. That is put out there all the time. Viewers, listeners, if you go back, we run across that a lot, saying pay attention to the words that you put out, pay attention to words that are said to you, because this is and you know, and that goes into, you know, this. It dawned on me last night. Everywhere you look, everywhere you hear, they're talking about, which is fine. I don't mind it. but then they're trying to me, it seems like it's almost kind of being railroaded to some degree. And I'm gonna do, you know me, Mississippi, I'm gonna get into my research mode and figure out. And I kind of know and understand what's going on, but the word black community, the first black, as we talk about the Supreme Court, see all these games being portrayed in front of us. To get on that, that's why we're on the words, first black Supreme Court judge. We have a black there. And of course, you see, he wasn't for much help, Clarence Thomas. So what is different is going to be, now here, if we want to get into their personal life, sure, let's go into detail. Clarence Thomas, more than 30 years of being on the Supreme Court, was married to a white woman. This new Kanata Brown, if I'm saying her first name right, I think it's Kanata Brown Jackson, or she married to a white male. So to me, in my aspect of moving through history, I don't see or recall in the aspect of that it's saying that, not saying that she may not do anything, but she's been around. When I was studying her background briefly, she's been around. She was appointed first off by Barack Obama to sit on a judicial court, judicial proceeding, to proceed someone, to replace someone, I should say. But she was, in any case, she was put on by Barack Obama. And then now we'll just say this is the same administration. This just has a new face at the head. To me, this is the Obama administration still in power, but they're placing this black woman in the Supreme Court. And so we are to be mindful and watchful and pay attention to words that are being said. Just first starting off with that term, the first black woman to be on the Supreme Court. Okay. So my question would be, what is she going to do while she's on the Supreme Court? How is that going to have a constructive result on my life or moving forward? If I look in the past, I don't see any constructive results that come out of a black male being on. He wasn't the first, but being another black male that somebody with a black face in a high place. And it really, Supreme Court really don't have all that much power as reference to when you talk about the House of Representatives and Congress, more or less Congress. The Supreme Court really can only make higher decisions based on what happens in the states. But they can't federally, really don't federally have any. That's why they're appointed by a president, because president can just, we don't vote these people in on the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. These are people who's put on this court system. It's called the Supreme Court, as judges that have lifetime benefits and lifetime jobs for the most part. And really, you would think that we as a voting mass would be able to actually place people in the Supreme Court. That's why they don't have all that much duties as reference to what would really happen to you. Only based on a state level, they can only really make certain things, making only certain judgments based on what can be at hand on what is to happen to an individual. But they can't make any overall decisions based on the whole country as a mass. Only Congress can make that decision.
No, because look, when you look at Roe versus Wade, mm-hmm. They have the determining factor in that, and that affects all of the country.
Well, that was Roe versus Wade was a state. As I said, it was a state case. It was a federal case. That was a state decision. Right. So they really.
But Dr. K, it's still mm-hmm. before the Supreme Court. They haven't deliberated on that yet. And once they make a deliberation, or either.
No, and that's the problem. They shouldn't be making this. So when we go back to talking about our see, that's a problem. Because here again, we don't vote people into the Supreme Court, right?
Right.
So now they can do whatever they want in that proceeding. They can make any type of decision. That's when you go back to our dear brother Dred Scott. See the games is being played. Now here the Supreme Court made a decision, and that decision still stands today, saying that no white man will have any respects or bounds to respect anything that a black man will say or do. This was a decision made by Chief Justice Taney, who was the Chief Supreme Court Justice at that time. And to hear that statement that Chief Justice Judge made, that still hasn't been corrected. Because if it has, we can go all the way back to 90, 91. What was happening during that time, Minister P? We had an
91?
atrocity happened then. So had they corrected that atrocity that happened in the 90s, we wouldn't be talking about George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery or anybody else that looked like you and I. It's going to be Rodney King. I mean, we have to. This is one of those. You have to come up with a plan to get one put forth to say, well, the Supreme Court should be making any decisions based on what is to happen to me and how I maneuver. I thought it was Congress to overall, because they're going to make a judgment based on the whole country, not just one particular state and say, well, no, that state can do it and that state can do it. No, this is supposed to be what they call the United States of America.
And instead, it looks like we're having what? War games. Right here.
Yeah. We're in the midst of war games.
War games, yeah. But I like to say this, so Dr. K, listen, what your show is doing along the way is it is speaking into existence the exact politician that we need that will affect all of these changes. And so we need that politician, obviously, to understand housing, economics, healthcare, and housing. And so that is the politician, brothers and sisters, viewers and friends, who we need to elect to change these laws here inside of our country that can change the oppression that we are feeling in these impoverished communities. So we're speaking that politician along the way, but getting back to democracy and dictatorship of what Putin is doing over there, it is vital that we elevate our mind now to the world view, and then we'll come back to domestic. But right now, we have to see and notice what our enemy is doing through this aggression. Because if he takes over that, do you think he'll stop? No. Hey, Dr. K, listen to this. He already said, now you understand this. He already said to the West, and listen, don't try to stop me. And may I remind you that I have nuclear capability. Hello. Come on now.
Yeah, well, see, that's why it's important, that we utilize that Second Amendment, and hopefully that was opportunity knocking. We utilize that Second Amendment, and really, we use that Second Amendment to really pay attention to what we need to be doing in society, because that saying goes a long way. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. That in itself, what he's saying in that statement, you have to listen to those words he's saying and learn from that, because again, that in these war games is happening, that we see in our society and in our world of what we're looking at now. This could, do we have sympathy for those people who are in the Ukraine and happen to suffer? Yes, we have that sympathy, but we have to be mindful as reference to how the West reacts and to having sympathy. And then when they have this sympathy and place these individuals from one place to another, within the West, which would be the U.S., we have to be mindful of the treatment of how we're going to be treated once these people arrive here, because we've seen that it's so frequent and also familiar. When someone arrives here that hasn't been here for some time, they tend to mal and mistreat and do as the status quo is doing. I said, well, that's what they're doing, so that's what I should be doing too. So we have to be mindful. Again, we give our solidarity to those who are there going through this atrocity and have to deal with such. But we have to be mindful of their placement, because it will happen. They will bring these. At this point, they'll be refugees, right? So sometimes these refugees can come over here and start undermining what would be of the other persuasion, which be black, as they call us, which I kind of hate that term in itself. This be that term of black, because it's a term that's been given, and not being the proper term, which should be native. I would say native black. If you're gonna call me anything, call me the native, because like here again, I can't properly call myself an African. And I'm saying that in the ending of what they would call Black History Month. It's a reason that they call it that. They don't call it African History Month. They call it Black History Month, because we actually developed the term. We actually developed that term, Black History Month, as far as calling it that. We didn't call it African Month because that connection there. But getting back on track in this aspect of war games, people in the midst of the war games, pay attention to words. Words at this point is going to become very detailed, really have to barely pay attention to what is being said. Because if you're going to be watching news media or watching anybody else, you really have to pay attention to words to see what is said out in the atmosphere, and you have to break those words down as reference to how it relates to you. Because if this war happens, and it will lead into World War III, this really would have an effect on people that are here and people that will be here for 30 to 40 years out. So we have, as Minister P said earlier, we have to be visionary. Those are one of the code of ethics. You have to have a vision for where you're going, and not and get out of the aspect of having and talking about a dream, because this is what they sold us. Dr. King, he made that speech of having a dream. That was just only a speech. He said he was dreaming that one day something could happen. Then 4 years later or so, he said that that dream surely was a nightmare. So let's not let your dream become that nightmare because you didn't have a vision. So be visionary in your movement, and stop dreaming about certain things. It's so many. And Mr. P, you well as would know than me. Our music of old, we'll say starting from the 70s, had meaning, and it had a meaning as reference to how it was portrayed out there. I want to play one particular brother who's actually from Chicago. It's reference to ending in Black History Month. I know, Mr. P, you might get a laugh out of this one because you know innately who this brother is and what he was saying in his words. And I'll play briefly. We still got some time, but I'm gonna play I'll play 2 minutes of each song. I'll do one song as reference to what we have in office today. This song, we have a president in office that would be considered to be a pusher man. My thing is, what is he pushing? So we're gonna roll out with these 2 minutes of songs by our dear brother who was from Chicago, Illinois, Curtis Mayfield. But have your ears open for words, pay close attention to words. And I invite you to tune in to us next Saturday, same time, same station, same, and hopefully more viewership. Please like and share. And on Sunday mornings, just to get that extended spiritual word. My dear brother here, my co-host, Minister P, he airs at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings. Sunday mornings, he will be bright and early, and the plane takes off promptly. His flight airs promptly at around he usually takes off around 7:55, but his flights is usually on time if there's no technical difficulties. So be sure to listen in to him on Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And if you want to hear the rebroadcast, if you have missed him live, you can catch his rebroadcast on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday mornings at the same time, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And he'll surely be bringing that recast of word if you missed him Sunday morning. Couldn't get that crust out of your eyes from Saturday night.
Wake up.
Right. We need that song to come in, but I want to play the brother from here who's trying to inspire what was happening during that time. You know, words was being said at that time in the songs that most people, you know, they had meaning. They had meaning, Mr. P. We're gonna roll out with that.
I'm your daddy, I'm that nigga in the alley. I'm your doctor with a need. Want some coke, have some weed. You know me, I'm your friend, your main boy, victim thin. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. Bad machine, super cool, super clean, feeling good for the man, super fly. Here I stand, secret stash, heavy red, baddest bitches in the bed. I'm your pusher man. I'm your pusher man. Your pusher man. Solid life, friend. Gotta get better.
This night, I was so depressed, and I went and got the Bible, and I turned to the book of Revelation. And if people would just get and read the Bible and read the book of Revelations, they would really turn around and straighten up. This is all we need to do, is just get the good book, read it, put it to everyday life.
Sisters, niggas, ladies, if there's hell, sisters, brothers in the whitest, and the crackers, police and their backers, they're all political liars. Running their words, all the judge on his juries, dictate the law, the law. I feel it for peace, no one is willing. I'm the man that gets that feeling. Everybody's smarting, use the field, educated, I'm uneducated school. Some of the people have those. So talking about those man. I can be no show, and if there's hell below, let's go. Everybody,
You know, as as we saying those words, those words speak volume, especially in songs. And you know, we have to pay attention to the songs that were put out then. As you see, some of our music today is quite tainted for the most part, and it doesn't have more of a message that is telling the people what they should be doing and how they should be doing things. So you would think that these people, who our brothers and sisters then, and that they could feel the struggle, even if it wasn't happening to them, they can feel it because they were writing it and they were seeing it. So you can see that the pain was there because they wrote it on paper to be displayed in the music. And so I challenge our brothers and sisters today, ladies and gentlemen, today, to pay attention to words and be mindful in what words you use to other people. I'm your host, Dr. K. Ms. P, your last words before we get out of here?
Absolutely. This was a great show. But everybody, please be mindful of the words that you use. Each word is a container of an emotion, and that make sure that emotion is positive.
Right. See y'all, hear y'all, tune in to y'all next week. Happy Black History Month on the last word, and I salute you to no war. Because look, we don't need no more of this sitting in our living rooms when it's
Amen. It's a great honor for your father, man.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Fighting for our country.
Oh yeah.
Well, peace out, Dr. K. God bless
Right.
you.
All right, that was good. Good. We off.